Hello, lovely soul. So happy you found your way here. If this is your first visit, feel free to subscribe and maybe pass this video along to someone who needs a smile. I'd love to know where you're watching from, your city, your country, wherever you call home. Let's get started and make some good vibes together. 22 years. That's how long Laura and I had worn the titles of husband and wife. Before the entire foundation, I thought we stood on shattered like fragile glass, dropped from a height. My name is Richard Thompson. By trade, I'm a civil engineer. By heart, a father to 3. And until recently, I was the kind of man who believed that love, real love, could weather anything. I met Laura while she was finishing her degree in marketing. I was already well into my career designing roads and bridges. She was all spark and spontaneity, where I was deliberate and steady. Friends used to say we were a perfect match, opposites that somehow balanced each other. Our wedding remains etched in my mind like sacred footage. She wore her grandmother's pearls, tears in her eyes as she promised me forever. I took her at her word. Every overtime shift I picked up, every poker night I skipped with the guys, every vacation we could barely afford but booked anyway because she wanted the kids to have memories. All of it was for the life I thought we were building as a team. Our children came early in the marriage. Michael was born less than 2 years in. Sarah followed, and finally Emma, who made our family whole. Laura took to motherhood like it was a calling. She scheduled playdates with military precision, researched preschools like a doctoral thesis, and poured herself into making our old colonial house feel alive and full. Years went by the way they do in long marriages, quietly, quickly, filled with the comfort of routine. Soccer practices, romantic dinners at Giuseppe's on anniversaries, lazy Sunday breakfasts with her legendary blueberry pancakes. Of course, we disagreed sometimes. She liked to spend, I liked to save. I wanted rules for the kids. She leaned toward a softer touch. And her mother? Let's just say extended holiday visits became a sore point. But none of it ever made me question the strength of what we had. Then the current began to shift, slowly at first. She started traveling more for work, said her agency had landed major accounts, and she needed to meet clients in cities like Boston and Chicago. Overnight trips became common. It all made sense. She'd just been promoted, senior account manager, after putting in years of long nights and relentless hustle. Then came the gym membership. "I'm 43, Richard," she said one morning. "It's now or never if I want to get in shape." I couldn't fault her for that. Next, she updated her wardrobe. "I can't meet with executives wearing decade-old blouses," she joked. Then came the late nights at the office and the locked phone, explained as a company security measure. Each change, on its own, seemed logical, justifiable. But together, they formed a picture I refused to look at too closely. I had too much faith in her to connect the dots. Our anniversary was coming, November 15th. I still remembered nervously proposing in that tiny Italian place that's now a Starbucks. Laura brought it up again recently, saying she wanted this year's celebration to be extra meaningful. But her eyes stayed fixed on her phone when she said it. Just last Tuesday, she rushed out early, muttering about an emergency at work. Her travel mug sat untouched on the counter. She brushed a kiss across my cheek, absent-minded, hollow. I caught the scent of her perfume, stronger than usual. It lingered after she left. "Don't wait up," she said from the door. I didn't. But I lay awake for hours anyway, eyes on the ceiling, trying to ignore the tightening feeling in my chest that had been creeping in for weeks. After 20-plus years with her, I knew Laura's rhythm like a familiar song, but lately, the melody felt off. Still, I pushed the doubts away. This was Laura, my wife. The same woman who once folded my first handwritten note into her jewelry box like it was something precious. That week, I had winter on my mind, specifically the closets. It was time to rotate out the summer clothes, pull down the coats from the attic. Laura always ribbed me about not pitching in with household chores, especially organizing. I figured I'd surprise her by tackling her side of the closet while she was at work. A small act, maybe. But after more than 2 decades together, it's the little things that keep love breathing. I thought it would be a sweet gesture, a quiet token ahead of our anniversary. What I didn't expect was the real surprise waiting behind those sliding closet doors. Her scent filled the small space, lavender from the fabric softener, mingled with that expensive new perfume she'd recently taken to wearing. I was organizing our warm weather clothes, methodically folding each piece into neat piles across the bed, when my hand brushed against something rigid wedged behind the heavy winter jackets. It was a journal, leather-bound, a deep wine color, secured by a tiny brass latch that hung loosely, unlocked. There was no label, no identifying mark. I almost pushed it back into hiding. Almost. But there was something about finding a concealed diary buried in the corner of Laura's closet that overrode any instinct to leave it alone. The first page was dated 2 years earlier. The handwriting was unmistakable. Those same familiar loops and swirls that had once penned love letters and signed permission slips for our kids. Finally bought a journal. I need somewhere to confess the things I can't speak aloud, the impulses I can't seem to silence. My chest constricted. Still, I kept turning the pages. First time with Derek today. God, I forgot how good it feels to be craved. Truly craved. Not like Richard's stiff Tuesday night attempts. Derek touched me like he needed me to breathe. We didn't even make it to the bed. Derek Hoffman, the guy from her office, the same one who mailed us a holiday card, smiling next to his wife and their 2 blonde twin daughters. The room spun around me. I sat down hard on the bed, crushing a stack of folded sundresses beneath me. Entry after entry followed, each one more gutting than the last. Derek wasn't the only name. Andrew, from the gym. Those hands, unbelievable. Tom, from the business trips to Chicago, 3 times in one night, still feeling it. Men I'd never met. Places I didn't know she'd been. Descriptions I never imagined she could write. But none of it cut as deep as what came next. Richard made his pot roast again tonight. Tuesday night tradition. He talked about some work thing while I was replaying what Andrew did to me earlier today. How did I end up with someone so dull? Same dinners, same conversations, same bedtime rituals. Tuesdays, pot roast. Sundays, pancakes. Every night, shower at 9:30, news at 10, asleep by 10:45. 2 decades on a loop. My hands started shaking. That pot roast, her favorite. She used to request it. The kids think their father is a saint. He works hard, they say. If they only knew, he's the human equivalent of beige walls. And those long shifts he brags about? That's my free pass. More time to sneak around with Tom without having to invent an excuse. Sometimes he looks at me with those sad puppy dog eyes, and I want to scream. Last month I brought Derek to our bed while Richard was away at a conference. I washed the sheets, but left the scent of Derek's cologne on the pillow, just to see if Richard would notice. He didn't, not even a glance. Probably too busy fantasizing about concrete and steel. I dropped the journal and bolted for the bathroom. My stomach emptied itself before I could even shut the door. 22 years of marriage and last night's dinner came up together. When I could finally stand, I returned to it. I had to know everything. Every wound, every deception, every time she smiled at me while thinking about someone else. Our 22nd anniversary's coming up. Richard's definitely planning something. He always does. Probably dinner at Giuseppe's. Again. If he's feeling adventurous, maybe he'll order the veal instead of chicken parm. I'm counting the days until Emma graduates in May. Once she's done, I can leave. Tom's divorce should be finalized by then. We've already looked at a few places. Just 6 months to go. 6 months. She had a timeline. A secret escape plan masked by routine smiles and shared calendars. The latest entry was dated just 3 days ago. Derek broke it off. His wife caught on. He panicked. But Tom's still in the picture. And I met someone new at the conference last week. James. Younger, eager. Thinks I'm 35. Didn't even blink at the wedding band. Might have even liked it. Meanwhile, Richard's probably in the garage lining up his screwdrivers again for the 100th time. I'm alive out here. Actually alive. He'll never find this journal. He's too courteous, too gullible, too straight-laced to ever suspect that the woman he adores is just a flawless act. I meticulously scanned each page, capturing every bitter remark, every sly insult, with the same precision she used when organizing our weekly shopping. Once finished, I tucked the journal exactly where I'd found it, nestled behind the heavy winter jackets she'd soon pull out again. My hands no longer shook. What had once been panic was now something colder, sharper, pure focus. She thought those pages were buried for good. She had no idea they were about to become her undoing. For 3 full days, I played the part of the perfect husband. "Morning, sweetheart," I'd say, brushing a kiss against Laura's cheek as she rushed off. The same cheek that had likely felt the lips of Derek, Andrew, Tom, and God knows how many others. "Don't wait up," she'd call out as she grabbed her keys. "Dinner with a client." "Drive safe," I'd reply, steady as ever. What she didn't realize was that her so-called client didn't exist on any business contact list. His name was James, and their rendezvous wasn't in a boardroom, but a hotel bar. The moment she left, I went back to work. I retrieved the journal again, this time not for photos, but for a detailed, professional-grade archive. I used my flatbed scanner, capturing every smear of ink at 600 dpi, each salacious line, each doodle, every heart scrawled next to a lover's name, her obscene poetry for them, her mocking side-by-side comparisons of their performances versus mine, each one more degrading than the last. I started researching boutique print services and found a small shop about 30 miles away, a quiet place known for crafting artisanal books. The owner, an elderly man named Giuseppe, thankfully, not that Giuseppe, welcomed me without question. When I ordered 10 leather-bound copies, he simply nodded. "Anniversary gift," I said smoothly. "My wife writes." "How wonderful," he smiled, caressing the sample leather. "She'll treasure them." I almost laughed out loud. I requested Laura's diary to be embossed in gold leaf on the front of each book. Elegant, refined, exactly Laura's taste these days. Something shifted in me during those days. The crushing heartbreak began to harden into cold intention. I started watching her like an outsider would, clinically, the way she lit up reading certain texts, the expensive lingerie that never made an appearance in our bedroom, credit card charges from upscale restaurants she used to scoff at as pretentious. "You've been kind of distant," she said one evening during a commercial break from some reality show about glamorous people and their ridiculous dramas. "Just swamped," I murmured. "Big client downtown. Morrison Foundation." "Oh," she muttered, not really listening, eyes already fixed back on her phone. Her fingers danced across the screen, smiling at something, or someone. I caught a glimpse of a name, T. Could have been Tom. Or maybe some new fling entirely. Didn't matter anymore. I started making the calls. "Hey, Mom. Just checking. Are you and Dad free for our anniversary dinner?" November 15th. "No juice pies this year?" she teased. "Thinking of changing it up this time," I replied. "Somewhere special. You'll want to bring your glasses. Might be some speeches." She was delighted. 22 years. "Richard, that's beautiful. You two are such a strong couple." Next, I called Laura's folks, her sister Jennifer. Our 3 kids, Michael could fly in from law school, Sarah could step away from her engineering co-op for the weekend, and Emma, who was wrapping up high school, could drive in on Friday. Sarah, always the one who noticed too much, hesitated. "Dad, this doesn't sound like you. Is everything okay?" "Everything's great, sweetheart," I said with warmth. "I just want to do something meaningful to honor what your mother and I built." Choosing the venue was easy. La Bernardina, the high-end restaurant Laura always deemed too extravagant unless it was a milestone birthday. I booked their private dining room. "Would you like us to design a personalized menu?" the manager asked. "No need," I said. Your standard offerings are perfect. I'll be bringing individual gifts for everyone, small keepsakes. How thoughtful, he said with a courteous nod. Everyone reacted the same way. What a lovely idea. You're such a romantic. Laura's lucky to have you. Meanwhile, I watched her spin lie after lie like she was born for it. A quick stop at the store became a 2-hour absence. Meeting Jennifer for coffee, she claimed, while Jennifer was busy posting Instagram selfies from a Florida beach. She'd claimed she had an early meeting, 6:30 in the morning, conveniently ignoring the fact that her workplace didn't open until 9. The night before our anniversary, she stepped out of the closet holding a new dress and spun before the mirror. Well, she asked, slowly turning, is it too much? It was scarlet, clearly high-end, and a far cry from the practical clothes she used to buy at Target, without a second thought. But that version of Laura, the modest, grounded one, had been nothing more than a persona. This, I realize now, was the real her. The same woman who once wrote in her own handwriting that the feel of my skin on hers made her stomach twist. You look incredible, I said, absolutely breathtaking. She grinned, clearly pleased with herself. I want tomorrow to mean something, she said. 22 years together, Richard. That's rare. You're right, I said, my thoughts drifting to the 10 journals locked in the filing cabinet back at my office. It is. While she arranged details for yet another supposed business trip, I was putting the final touches on a reckoning she never saw coming. The dinner she thought would be a celebration of lasting love was, in truth, the unveiling of everything she tried to hide. La Bernardina glowed that night, all soft light and polished silver. I arrived first. At each place setting, I carefully laid out a leather-bound journal, face down, lined up perfectly. The manager gave me a puzzled glance, but said nothing. The sizable deposit I'd wired ahead of time had bought me both discretion and silence. My family came in first, my parents, graceful with age, dressed impeccably. Laura's parents followed shortly after, her mother holding a pastel gift bag like it was a sacred object. Jennifer appeared next, Paul trailing just behind. Then came our children. Michael wore the navy suit he planned to use for his upcoming law school interviews. Sarah made the drive in from college, 3 hours away. Emma, still in high school, wore the same burgundy dress Laura had picked for her homecoming just weeks ago. Dad, this place is wild, Michael said, surveying the decor. You must have spent a fortune. She's worth every penny, I replied softly. Your mother deserves the best. Laura arrived last, right on cue. Hair styled, makeup flawless. A scent I didn't recognize lingered in the air around her. The red dress shimmered as she entered. I'd already seen the salon charge come through on our shared credit card. Heads turned. She soaked in the attention. Richard, she breathed, eyes wide as she took in the private room, the flowers, the faces gathered. This is unreal. She leaned in and kissed me, firm, deliberate, like she was performing for the cameras. I tasted regret that didn't belong to me. 22 years, I said, once everyone had taken their seats. 22 years beside the woman I once thought I knew. Laura pressed a napkin to the corner of her eye, feigning emotion like a seasoned actress. She was good, I'll give her that. I wanted this night to be unforgettable, I continued. And I thought I'd share something deeply personal with the people who've been with us through it all. I motioned toward the journals. These are for you. Please turn them over. Each one gleamed with embossed gold. Laura's diary. Laura froze mid-sip. Richard, what is this? She asked, her voice barely steady. Page 1, I replied, calm and unwavering. Let's begin at the start. Before I could intervene, my mother had already opened hers and began reading aloud. Finally bought a journal. I need somewhere to confess what I can't say aloud. The urges I can't resist. Mom, I said gently, maybe read the rest to yourself. The room fell still, except for the sound of pages turning. Faces began to shift. My mother's brow wrinkled with confusion. Laura's mother looked like she'd seen a ghost, her lips forming a thin, horrified line. Jennifer visibly recoiled when she stumbled across an entry where she'd unknowingly provided Laura with an alibi. Michael, I said, addressing my son. Flip to page 43. It's about our family dinners. He did. As he read his mother's words, complaining about how agonizing mealtimes were, counting minutes until she could sneak off to text one of her lovers, his complexion drained of color. Sarah, I said gently, page 87. Remember those trips she used to take for work, the ones you were so proud of? Her eyes filled with tears as she read confessions of nameless hotel rooms and faceless men. Emma, honey, I continued softly, page 102. In that entry, Laura wrote about your graduation, how that event would mark the moment she'd finally leave me. Emma looked up, stunned. You were going to leave Dad after I graduate? She whispered, her voice cracking. In 6 months, I said quietly. Laura suddenly stood, her chair scraping loudly against the tile floor. This is outrageous! How dare you! She cried out. How did I dare? I echoed, laughing bitterly. Easily. Jennifer, I said, turning to her. Check page 90. Derek's name comes up. Her fingers trembled as she turned the page, reading aloud in disbelief. Derek? Derek Hoffman? Jennifer's face fell apart. You slept with my husband? She whispered, barely audible. I showed Paul, Jennifer's husband, the entry on page 120, I began. It references Andrew. From your gym. You might remember some of what she wrote. According to her, she arranged things so they wouldn't bump into each other, by handing over your workout schedule. By then, Laura's parents had begun flipping through the pages themselves. Their hands trembled with each turn. Her mother's voice broke as she read aloud one of the entries. This one dated the night of their 40th anniversary. Left early, lied, and said Emma was running a fever. In reality, I met Tom at the Marriott, gave him what he came for, the whole time thinking how horrified Mom and Dad would be if they knew their golden daughter was on her knees in a public restroom. Her father's voice sliced the air like ice. Laura Michelle, he said with slow, deliberate rage. What kind of sick joke is this supposed to be? Dad, Laura stammered, her voice rising, breath catching. I asked you a question, he shouted. Is any of this true? She stood frozen. Words failed her, and they weren't needed. The evidence was clear, spelled out in her own cursive, with names, dates, and shame soaked into every page. This wasn't a one-time mistake, I said firmly, speaking over the silence thick in the room. This has gone on for more than 2 years. Derek, Andrew, Tom, James, and others she didn't even think were worth naming. 2 years of deceit. She used Jennifer to cover her absences. She used our kids' events as alibis. And me? I looked straight at her. What was it you wrote about me again? Page 158. Our eldest, Sarah, opened her diary and read aloud in an unsteady voice. Richard is as emotionally exciting as wet paint. He's sucking the life out of me. If it wasn't for Tom, I would have gone crazy in this perfect prison. Laura reached for Sarah instinctively. Sweetheart. Don't! Sarah said sharply, yanking her arm back. Don't ever touch me again! Michael got to his feet next. He had my build, but her eyes, except now they burned with disgust. You've been married to Dad for 22 years. He worked himself into the ground for this family. And this is what you were doing behind our backs? You don't understand, Laura pleaded, her voice cracking. Try page 212, I said without looking at her. The night of Michael's law school celebration. Michael had already turned to it. He read in silence, then threw the journal against the wall with a hollow thud. Sat through Michael's long-winded speech about dreams and ambition. Richard cried during his thank you. What a loser. At least slipping out early to hook up with Tom saved the evening. Emma had been quietly weeping the whole time. Her grandmother wrapped her in a protective embrace, shielding her from Laura's gaze with a kind of fury I didn't know she had in her. Laura finally turned to me. Her mascara had run into streaks. How did you get this? She whispered. Where did you find it? I was cleaning out your closet, I replied coolly. I was trying to do something thoughtful for our anniversary. Imagine that, me planning a surprise and instead uncovering the truth. That was private, she snapped, voice full of venom. Those were personal entries. You had no right to read them. Jennifer laughed bitterly. Private? You wrote about cheating on your husband in their bed, about lying to my face, about using me to cover your tracks, about deceiving your own children while pretending to be a good mom. You forfeited your right to privacy the moment you decided to treat the rest of us like props in your personal soap opera. A manager approached, clearly drawn by the commotion. I handed him my card. We'll be out of here shortly, I said calmly. Laura looked around the room, taking in the damage for the first time. Her parents sat hollow-eyed. Jennifer glared daggers at her. Her children looked utterly destroyed. And me, I just watched in silence. Richard, she said, almost inaudibly, we can fix this. Maybe therapy. Page 301, I said without inflection. Her face went pale, she remembered. Richard brought up the idea of couples counseling after we argued about money, as if some therapist could make him less pitiful. My real therapy is Tom twice a week and counting down the days until Emma leaves for college. Michael stood. I'm done. Me too, Sarah said as she helped Emma up from her chair. You're my children, Laura said desperately. You can't just leave me. Emma turned, eyes wet with tears. You watched us grow up while living a lie. Now we're going to watch you walk away from all of it. And with that, the three of them left, arms linked, supporting each other like people crawling out of wreckage. Laura's parents followed silently. Her mother set down the gift bag she had brought. I could see the edges of a photo album peeking through the tissue paper. 22 years of a life we built together. Now nothing more than a fiction. Jennifer lingered at the doorway, her expression unreadable. I stood in your corner, she told Laura quietly. Whenever Richard looked like something was eating at him, I'd tell him you were just driven, focused on your goals. I was your shield, never realizing I was helping you chip away at him. Laura opened her mouth. Jenny, it's Jennifer, she said, her voice turning to ice. And if you ever contact me again, I won't hesitate to share this diary with everyone you know. Then she left, and the only ones left in the private dining room were Laura and me. 10 leather-bound journals sat between us like gravestones, marking the death of everything we'd built. Her voice was barely audible. Why didn't you just talk to me first? Page 412, I said. Would you like me to read what you wrote about what you'd do if I ever found out? She shook her head weakly, but I didn't need the book. I knew it by heart. If Richard finds out, I'll deny everything. I'll gaslight him. I'm smarter than he is, always have been. I can twist things until he doubts his own memory. Men like him don't walk away. They bend. They forgive. They accept less than they deserve because they're too afraid to leave. I stood up slowly, adjusted my tie, and held her gaze. You were wrong about a lot, I said evenly, but especially about that. By the time that anniversary dinner ended, Laura hadn't just been unmasked. She'd been removed entirely from the life she took for granted. As the restaurant gradually emptied, a few patrons glanced inside our private room. She stayed seated, surrounded by open volumes of her own confessions. That crimson dress, once meant for celebration, now seemed like a cruel irony. You've destroyed everything, she said to no one, her eyes fixed on the tablecloth. No, I corrected her. You did that yourself. I just made sure your story got an audience. Bradley Morrison, yes, that Morrison, the one whose name is etched on the firm's glass tower, was already waiting on standby. I'd contacted him the day after I finished digitizing the journals. I stepped outside to make the call. Bradley? Yeah, dinner went exactly how we planned. Go ahead and file first thing in the morning. No chance at reconciliation. The proof is beyond sufficient. From inside, Laura's head snapped up. You already hired a lawyer? She asked, stunned. Page 290, I said. You described how you'd conceal assets. I figured I should act accordingly. The divorce papers were delivered to her the next morning. Bradley had worked late into the night, assembling damning excerpts from her own writings, details of repeated infidelities, mental manipulation, and even her blueprint to leave the family after Emma's graduation. Custody wasn't an issue with Michael and Sarah. They were already adults. But Emma, now 18, had her own voice. Michael called me that afternoon. "Dad, I need to take a few days off school," he said. I need space to process." "Take all the time you need," I assured him. Sarah, never one to sugarcoat, was more direct. "I'm blocking her number," she said. "If there's anything important, let me know yourself, Dad." But it was Emma who surprised me most. "I'm legally an adult now," she told me. "That means I get to choose where I live." She met my eyes without hesitation. "I choose you." Laura spent the following week trying to hold on to her place in the home, but the diary made her every excuse crumble. She'd written it all, how she planned to disappear, how she used the house for her affairs, how she lied about everything that mattered. When she finally began to pack, her parents, Roger and Patricia, arrived. "We're ashamed," Patricia told her quietly, the disappointment thick in her voice. "This isn't the daughter we raised." "People slip up," Laura muttered, trying to salvage some dignity. "Missing a birthday is a slip-up," Roger snapped. "What you did is deliberate, calculated cruelty. You're not welcome in our home anymore." The social fallout came swiftly. People didn't need guidance. They chose their sides instantly. It turned out that Derek's wife had also received an anonymous delivery, a packet containing the pages that named him. Tom's wife received hers as well, and Andrew's girlfriend. Every person Laura had deceived now had undeniable proof in their hands. Word eventually made its way to her workplace. The fact that she'd used company time and resources to facilitate her affairs, as detailed in her own entries, didn't go over well. HR acted quickly. The promotion she'd once flaunted disappeared without ceremony. Not long after, she was encouraged, quietly but firmly, to look for another job. One afternoon, while packing the last of her things, she spun around and screamed at me. "You ruined my life!" I didn't even raise my voice. I was folding Emma's laundry. "No, Laura," I said. "You did that. Every word that destroyed you was written by your own hand. All I did was ensure the truth landed where it needed to. The divorce was over in just 90 days, pushed through quickly thanks to the overwhelming evidence." Laura walked away with nothing more than the bare minimum the law allowed. No alimony. Her infidelity made sure of that. The asset split was surgical. Her own journal made it clear she'd been planning her departure long before I ever uncovered it. I kept the house. I kept the money I'd saved from weekends and holidays she used to mock. About a month after the paperwork was finalized, Jennifer rang. "She's living in a tiny place now," she said, "above that old Dairy Queen. Working at some startup for half the pay." "I didn't ask," I said, and I hadn't. But Jennifer needed to say it aloud, needed to hear the justice in her own voice. Then she asked how the kids were. "They're coping," I told her. "They're healing." Emma's seeing someone professionally. The betrayal hit her hard, especially with graduation just around the corner. But they're strong. That's your influence. It was Laura's own handwriting that unraveled her world. All I did was make sure the people who needed to see it did. 8 months after the divorce, I found myself standing in our former bedroom, sealing up one last box of coats. The closet that had once hidden her confessions was just a normal closet now. No secrets, no echoes, just the faint scent of cedar and a row of empty hangers. Emma graduated in May, 6 months after the dinner that was supposed to mark our anniversary. The same event Laura had intended to use as her grand exit. She never came, sent a card instead. Emma tossed it straight into the trash, unopened. "I don't have a mother," she said. "I've got a dad. And he counts for both." Roger, Laura's father, called that morning too. "She reached out again," he told me, asked if I could send her some money. "And what did you say?" I asked. I told her every choice she made was hers. Every last one. Documented in her own handwriting, with dates and times. Everyone around here knew. This town wasn't big enough to keep secrets. Laura had taken a job at some fading marketing agency off Route 9, a place shedding clients by the week. Her tiny apartment above the Dairy Queen had turned into local legend, a reminder of how someone who once had everything could lose it all. Jennifer still gave me the occasional update. She couldn't help it. Laura tried online dating but gave up after too many people ran background checks. She joined a gym, only to bump into Andrew's new fiancée. Signed up for a book club, then found herself face-to-face with Derek's wife. No matter where she turned, someone was already waiting, someone who knew the full story. She asked about Emma, Jennifer told me just last week. Wanted to know where she's going to college. "And what did you tell her?" I asked. "Nothing," she replied. "What do you even say to someone who once wrote about counting down the days until she could leave her own kids?" The children found peace in their own ways. Michael went back to law school, specializing in contracts. "Words matter, Dad," he said. "She taught me that. What you write can decide your future." Sarah thrived in engineering, focused on bridge design. "I build things that stay standing," she once told me. We both knew she wasn't just talking about buildings. Emma surprised us all by choosing psychology. "I want to understand people like her," she said. "How someone can kiss their kids goodbye and then write about them like they're burdens." I didn't have an answer for her. Maybe no one does. The house feels lighter now. I repainted, moved furniture, threw out the pieces that held too many memories. The kitchen, once her staging ground while I cooked, became the place where Emma and I experimented with new recipes before she left for college. The bedroom, once a space laced with betrayal, became my sanctuary. I sleep alone now, but I don't feel alone. Once in a while I'd catch glimpses of her around town. At the gas station, refueling an old Honda, far from the luxury SUV she used to flaunt. At the supermarket, flipping through coupons and stacking generic items into her cart. One time at the bank, arguing with a teller about an overdraft charge. That day she saw me too. Across the room our eyes met. For just an instant, I thought I saw the woman I once vowed to spend my life with. But then, the truth settled in. She looked drained, thinner than I remembered, wrapped in a coat I hadn't seen since the cold snap 3 years ago. Her mouth twitched, as if searching for something to say, but nothing came out. And really, what could she have possibly offered at that point? I passed by her without a glance, not from anger, but because whatever bond had once tied us together had long since unraveled. She wasn't the person I had loved. The version of Laura I held on to for 22 years had never truly existed. The real woman had exposed herself. On 512 pages of leather-bound honesty, every word handwritten, every illusion stripped away. The last I'd heard about her came from Jennifer. She mentioned Laura had moved to a small unit a couple of towns over, a studio apartment, a job that paid less than half what she used to make, trying to outrun a reputation that clung to her in a world where digital footprints don't fade. "She says you destroyed her life," Jennifer told me. "Says it was revenge." "She wrote the story herself," I said. "All I did was let people see it for what it really was." I stood alone in that now barren closet, reflecting on how easily time fools us, how we mistake duration for protection. Laura had banked on the length of our marriage as a kind of armor. She believed my consistency meant I'd never call her out, that the years would hide her betrayals like dust beneath a rug. But time doesn't conceal. It amplifies. It doesn't forgive. It keeps score. And in the end, every betrayal she recorded in her journals, every cold confession, was compounded, not erased. When the reckoning arrived, it demanded everything she had left. Our kids still carried the scars. Some wounds aren't easily bandaged, and even when healing comes, it reshapes what once was. They'd been forced, too early, to confront the truth, that love can wear a convincing mask for decades. But they also learned that a painful truth is more merciful than a comforting lie. I closed the closet door and brought the last box out to the garage. Another winter was around the corner, but I was ready for it. The house held warmth. The lights glowed steadily, and the ones who mattered would be home for the holidays. Michael would come in from law school. Sarah was flying back from her engineering studies. Emma was wrapping up her first semester in psychology. Somewhere else, in that small apartment, Laura lived in the ruins she'd authored, surrounded not by family, but by the echoes of her own words. No holiday laughter, no calls from her children, no clinking glasses to mark an anniversary. Just silence. The silence of a life hollowed out by her own choices, preserved forever in ink. She had believed that time would protect her. I made sure she understood. Time only ensured that the collapse was absolute.